Okay, hello and welcome to the Economics and Land Economy webinar. So we will be running this as a question and answer session. So as you can see, we've got a panel here. We've got Chen, who's our fellow in economics. We've got students studying both economics and land economy, Ivan, who's our admissions tutor, so we can answer all sorts of questions that you have. If you use the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, you can answer any questions you have, doesn't matter how big or small they are. Some questions we will answer by typing, so make sure you check the answered column, and some of them we will answer live. If you've got any questions afterwards, anything you think we haven't answered or anything you want more information on, anything you think about after the webinar, please feel free to email the admissions office and we will get back to you. So first of all, let's let the panel introduce themselves. So if we start with our staff members.
So I'm Ivan, and I'm the admissions tutor in the arts and humanities, and what that means is I oversee the admissions process.
Hi, I'm Kathryn, sorry, and I'm the school's liaison officer, so I work in the admissions office with Megan.
I'm Chen, I'm fellow in economics and also first year director studies.
Hi, I'm Callum, I've just finished first year studying economics at Catz.
Hi, I'm Danielle and I'm in my first year studying land economy at Catz and I'm from Manchester.
Hi, I'm Lawrence and I'm in my first year doing land economy at Catz as well, and I'm from near Liverpool.
Hi, I'm Sahani and I'm also a first year economist at Catz.
So we've had quite a lot of questions asking about the interview process. So students would like to know what the interview process is like, and whether in the interview we emphasise the quantitative or qualitative side more. I don't know, River, if you want to start that, and then we'll get some student experiences.
So typically in the interview we have 2 interviews, and during each interview there's 2 interviewer and 1 student. In the interview we are asking questions about economics, and normally it requires students to analyse a specific questions. Technical part or mathematical knowledge will be assessed before the interview in the pre-interview exam. There's a math part in that assessment. So you could expect questions like math question, but we will not spend the whole interview time to analyze a specific math question. In terms of the interview questions on economics, it's not test the pre-knowledge, but of course you need to have specific knowledge about economics and A-level economics knowledge as a base to understand the question. But then we will not stick on a specific knowledge question. We are more care about how you analyze the question, how you try to explain a specific situation. And normally the interview will last for about 30 minutes each. So 2 interviews will be 1 hour.
I would say in terms of the land economy, the interviews tend to be more on the qualitative side rather than basically getting maths questions during the interview. So I had 2. In my first one, it was more of a debate, and that was more tailored around what I spoke about in my personal statement. So mine was personally about sustainability, but other people may have had it more around law or economics or whatever they're more interested in. But yeah, overall, it's more qualitative for land economy.
So we've had a number of questions about the admissions assessment that we asked students to take part in.
Yeah, so for the ECAA, it started off at some math questions, and then there was some like brain teasery, like TSA style questions, and then there was an essay at the end, like an economics related essay.
So from this year on, we will not have the problem solving questions in the ECA, pre-exam. So only 2 parts. One part is math question, 60 minutes, and another part is essay question, 60 minutes. In terms of preparation, of course, you need to know all the A-level syllabus on math question in order to answer the question. For the essay, I would encourage you to read the articles on The Economist, on Financial Times, and then there's some sample questions on the website, on the application websites, which you can practice beforehand.
So our next question is for the current students, and it's during your course, how often do you write essays and how often do you have to do maths problems? So if you could talk about the split of those two parts?
So with first year economists, you have 5 papers and a supervision in those once every other week, so 5 across a 2-week period. And papers 4 and 5 are essay subjects in politics and history. Paper 3 is your maths, where you do a problem set. And papers 1 and 2 are micro and macro, which obviously involves kind of analysis and a blend of the two, as you'd expect in economics.
In terms of land economy, we have 4 papers. So the law economics papers and the land economy paper, they're all essay based. So in our supervisions, we will get asked to do essays or kind of questions, but you answer them kind of like an essay. But then we have 1 paper which is we do maths and stats. So over a term, we probably have about 4 different problem sets that we'd have to do. So we have more essays in comparison to maths questions.
Ivan, I believe there's a couple of admissions type questions you'd like to answer.
Yeah, loads of questions on personal statements. So what should we include in the SAQ? So the SAQ, for those of you who don't know, is called the Supplementary Application Questionnaire. It's something that you fill in just for Cambridge. And one of the things it does is collect additional information from you so that we have the same information for everyone, for example, modules that you might have done as part of your A-level. But also there's an opportunity to have a supplementary personal statement. So this is useful very much, for example, for a course like land economy, which, as far as I know, isn't offered by any other university. Is that right, Danielle? So Cambridge is the only one with land economy. So obviously you would probably be, or you would be applying to university for other courses. And what the SAQ then and your personal statement should be tailored to those. But there's an opportunity in the SAQ, if you want, to tell us a little bit more about why you want to study the particular Cambridge course, in the case for economics, or land economy just in general for land economists out there. So it's just an opportunity. You don't have to fill it in. Your application won't be disadvantaged if you don't. Many people don't, but it's just an opportunity for you to explain a little bit more about why you want to study land economy. So that's the sort of specifics part of that. Moving more generally to personal statements. The first thing I want to say is that worry about them more for your other university applications than for Cambridge. And the reason is that we at Cambridge have admissions interviews and they enable us to get information that other universities can't. So that we don't score them to begin with. So one of the questions is, how do I stand out from my personal statement? To be brutally honest, and I read about 500 of these every year, it's pretty difficult to, so I wouldn't stress about it. People try and game the personal statement and think that there's some sort of magic formula that they can have that will unlock a Cambridge place. That's really not the case. The personal statement is there to tell us why you want to spend 3 years of your life doing this particular degree. So what's your motivation for that? Where does it come from? Is it a topic that you find particularly interesting? Is it a career that you have in mind? These things like that can be useful. They're there to show us how you explore your interest in the subject outside the classroom. So we want to see not just curricular stuff, but super curricular things. So these are books that you might read, magazines, documentaries that you might watch, online courses, podcasts, all of those are valid super curriculars. So just to show that you're engaging with your subject outside the classroom, because that motivation is really important once you get to Cambridge to keeping you working and motivated to your subject. And then there's a chance, if you want to write about extracurriculars. The rough guide is 80% curricular, super curricular, and about 20% extracurricular. Don't worry about the extracurricular. There's a lot of myths out there that the only way you get to Cambridge is if you're a perfect, ideal, well-rounded student and play cricket and sing in the choir and play grade 8 flute. Frankly, from an admissions tutor's perspective, and I guess my colleague River would agree, we don't really care about that. It's fine if you do it. It's not going to make you a good economist or land economist. So don't stress too much. So don't worry about gaming it. Don't worry about standing out. My advice would be, first of all, be honest, because anything you write in your personal statement is valid and fair game when it comes to us asking you questions. So don't write a list of books that you think sound clever, because it just gives us an opportunity to ask you about them. Try and be specific and write in depth. So rather than having a long shopping list of everything, it's okay to just focus on 2 or 3 things and write about them in a little bit more depth. I think that's more useful for us getting an impression of who you are. And then finally, be critical in the sense of that we're looking, the big step up when it comes to university is critical thinking. So unlike A-level, where a lot of it is frankly rote learning, you're learning key things and then learning to put them down on paper. When it comes to university level, you'll be weighing up the strengths and weaknesses of different arguments. So we're looking for evidence of that. So just to be honest, be specific, and be critical in your personal statement. And that's basically my advice.
So our next question would be for River and for our two economists. So what optional modules can you specialise in the second and third year? So I realise our two students are both first years, but if you could let us know what modules you're looking forward to taking in the next 2 years.
So in the second year, we can choose one optional paper apart from the microeconomics, macroeconomics, and econometrics. So the optional paper could be trade and development, math, labor economics, history, interwar, or some papers we borrow from the human, social, and political science department. And in third year, the option will be even wider. We have 2 compulsory modules, the microeconomics and macroeconomics, and then you can choose another 2 modules from political economics, banking and finance, public economics, development economics, industry, and math. Again, all the papers we borrow from the history, human, social, and political science department. And on top of that, you have the opportunity to write a dissertation, which can be any topics related to economics. So it's a very wide choice for the second year and third year student.
So we've had a question asking whether an applicant would be at a disadvantage if they hadn't taken further maths at A-level. River or Ivan, would you like to answer that?
So further maths is not required. Actually, when we take students, some students in the end didn't take further math, but it will be helpful if you've done it in your A-level for your first year study, because many topics will be very, very similar. If you took a further maths, and then you will be benefit from the statistic part and the pure math part, rather than mechanics or decision-making part. So that 2 part doesn't help too much. But it will not be disadvantaged in the interview process if you didn't take.
Just to add to that, so people have asked what sorts of A-levels are required. The only A-level that's required at St Catharine's is A-level maths. Some colleges require further maths, so it's worth checking college by college whether they insist on further maths or not. At St Catharine's we don't. Economics is not a required A-level.
If you didn't take economics or further maths in your A-level, due to your school doesn't provide this subject, please just write it down in the supplementary information to let us know you want to take the subject, but you don't allow to or not able to.
So next we've got an admissions question for Ivan. So is there a scoring system in admissions? How do we weight the different parts of the application?
We look at applications holistically. And what that means is that there are various components that we will look at. We will look at GCSEs or equivalent, so your exam qualifications to date. There's a myth out there that you have to have straight A's, otherwise it's not even worth thinking about applying. That's not the case. Most of our students apply to us with at least 5 A stars at GCSE, but that's not exclusively the case, and it's not a requirement. So there are no GCSE requirements for our degrees. We will look at personal statements. We will look for evidence of an interest in the subject, but we won't score the personal statement. For both these subjects, we will have pre-interview assessments. So we will get scores for those. And once we have those 3 bits of information, then we'll have predicted grades. From your school, from your teachers will predict, and we will look for the possibility, the potential to achieve our standard offer. So our standard offer for land economy is A star AA. And our standard offer, typical offer for economics is A star, A star, A, so 2 A stars. So we will look at all those 4. And then with those 4 bits of information in front of me, I, together with my colleagues, in this case River, will make the decision about who to apply, who to invite to interview. We aim to invite, usually 75% of people who apply to us will be invited to an interview, just as a rough indication. And that means that we do take the pre-interview assessments as one of the benchmarks that we look at. So I can't give you, I'm going to preempt some questions here. People say, well, what's the cutoff? What's the threshold? What's the score? There is no absolute threshold. It's a relative one. What that means is we will look at your relative position in your cohort who has taken that exam, and we will use that as one of the things that we look at. So we will combine those. We will look at all of those. And if you're looking like you're in the bottom quintile, the bottom 25% for all of those things, then it's very likely that you wouldn't be invited to interview. Then once we do that, we invite people to interview, and you will have an interview and you will get scores for both of your interviews. And then our job is we put all of those together and then we combine it. This is where it gets complicated, because we will look at all sorts of other contextual factors about people's school backgrounds, socioeconomic background, all these things that we have data have to try and contextualize people's performances. And then we put all that together, and that's how we make our decisions. So the thing to say is that the interview, people sometimes think of it as a sort of final hurdle, that you've done everything else and then you have to nail the interview and then you get a place. That is not the case. I wouldn't say everything is equally important, that's not true, but everything does count. So it's not like there are some people who have, interviews are nerve-wracking, and therefore, and some people don't perform quite as well at an interview. Just because that's the case, that will not completely destroy your chance of getting it at Cambridge. We will look at other factors as well. So it's a holistic look. I'd say the most important overall is, because it makes the basis of our offer, is, are you likely to achieve the typical offer? Because if you're not, then even if you did get an offer, then you wouldn't get a place. You will only get a place if you then make the offer that we give you. So that's probably, I'd say, overall the most important, but all those other things we also look at.
Ivan, would you also be able to briefly say how many applications we receive for both courses and the number of students we take?
Yeah, so economics is usually in the region of about 50, is that right, River? 50 in a given year apply. From that, we will usually make somewhere between 8 and 10 offers. It varies a little bit. So one of my jobs as admissions tutors is to coordinate across all the subjects. So it kind of varies from year to year a little bit, but we usually take between 8 and 10 students a year. In addition, we will put a number of students into the winter pool. So the winter pool, for those who don't know, is where if we get, and we usually do get quite a strong field of applicants, and we think someone is good and is worth looking at by another college, we will put them in the winter pool. And in December, January, other colleges can then look at them and maybe make them an offer. And so usually we'll get another 4, 5 people taken from the pool from economics by other colleges. So what that means is in any given year, you get about 50 people applying, 8 people to 10 getting places at Catz, and another 4, 5 getting places at other colleges. So you can work out that the applicant to place ratio is roughly somewhere in the region of 4 to 1, and 4 or 5 to 1. And that's pretty standard across all subjects and all colleges. And for land economy, we usually take about 4 students a year. And again, the applicant ratio is roughly similar. So we get fewer applicants, we get somewhere between 20 and 25, but we take half the number. So again, the applicant to place ratio is pretty similar in both subjects.
For both subjects, would the students be able to tell us what a typical week looks like for them? So how many lectures you have, how much independent study you do, and whether you have time for socialising and societies? Yeah, absolutely. So Monday to Friday, first year economics, you have about 2 or 3 lectures a day. And as I said earlier, you've got 5 one-hour supos across 2 weeks. So whenever they fall, that'll take up some of the time. And then the rest of your study involves reading further on from the lectures, which of course then goes into your supervision work, whether it's writing essays or doing the maths, problem sets and so on. But even with all that, you still have loads of time to, play sports, play music, whatever your hobbies are. It was in time during the day to relax in the JCR style common room and play some FIFA or whatever it is. So it's quite a well-balanced time.
For land economy, we're quite lucky in that we have quite short weeks. So in our first term, we only had lectures Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, which meant we had a nice 4-day weekend. But on those days, we would have 2 lectures, but they're each 2 hours long. So we have about 4 hours in the morning, and then we'd have the afternoon to kind of go over your notes, do any supervision work that you need to do. We tend to have about 1 or 2 supervisions a week. Sometimes you can get 3 in one week and 1 another. But what's quite good about the supervision system is that you tend to be able to kind of pick which day. So they'll give you a few options of different days and times, so you can work it around your own personal timetable. So if you play sports competitively, maybe at a university level or a college level, you can sometimes fit your supervisions around any commitments. And yeah, during the week, there's time for plenty of sports activities, societies. Literally, you can make time for anything, really. It's just a case of learning how to manage your independent studying time.
So we've had a question about land economy interviews. I'm not sure if this would be best answered by River or by the students. But in the interview process, would we expect students to know about specific laws or the British legal system, especially if students are from overseas?
So I didn't study law before coming to university, so I had no knowledge on it whatsoever. So they didn't really expect me to know anything about it. I know for people, say in their personal statement, they may have read some law books or have some previous knowledge that they're interested in and have spoken about. So during the interview process, they would be more likely to have questions directed to them about law. Whereas in my interview, I don't think I got asked a single question about law because I didn't really focus on that in my personal statement. I'm not too sure if that was the same for you, Lawrence.
No, I got asked no law questions. I actually ended up asking a law question to my interviewers, and they said they didn't know because that wasn't their speciality in the course anyway. So the likelihood is that you will not get a law question.
So we've had a number of questions about the type of mathematics that might be discussed in the interview. River, would you be able to answer that?
Yeah, again, we will ask similar questions like what you will see in your A-level question, and the focus will not be on whether you will be able to like complete the question, but more like how you're approaching the question. For example, we might ask you to draw a diagram of a function x, and then it could be very ridiculous. You have no idea how to draw it from very beginning, but then we will tell you, well, if you try this, if you try that, and see whether you will be able to learn during the process. So don't treat, it's the same question like earlier, do you need to know a specific law? We are not being here to test your knowledge. If all we're doing is that, we just give you exam questions. We're testing the ability to learn and the way you're approaching a difficult question you never met before. So if you stick to this principle, I think you will not be very worried about any interview questions you face.
So for our 4 students, we've been asked if you could give yourself any advice, or if you wish you'd been given any advice before your interview or your assessment, what would that have been?
Maybe just not to put too much pressure on myself, only because it's kind of sometimes you put too much pressure on yourself, you can underperform, but also it's just the realization that even if you may not do as well on one aspect, so say maybe the interview, you've got other parts of your application to still fall back upon. And also, if you don't end up getting an offer, it's still not the end of the world. You can still go on to other amazing universities and study something that you're really interested in. So that would probably be my advice to myself.
Yeah, similarly, lots of people were telling me like Cambridge interviews are like really scary and like they're really hard. So I came into the interview being like really scared and worried about it, but it's actually really not that bad. And like, yeah, I was really nervous, but probably just like stay calm and like don't listen to, I think like every college is different in the way they interview as well. So just don't listen to what other people are gonna like be talking about their interviews, because it's not that bad. Yeah.
Okay, we've had a lot of questions come in about personal statements and whether it's a problem to be too focused in your personal statement, whether it's a problem to be too broad in your personal statement, and particularly for land economy as well, if you don't mention all the different parts of the course. I'm not sure who would like to take that question.
Comes back to my statement of being honest, specific and critical. Remember that. And it is, my advice is avoid long lists of topics that you're supposedly interested in, books that you supposedly read. Be honest about the aspects of the course, either that you're doing at school or that you propose to do at university, that excite you the most. What topics within economics or land economy genuinely excite you? There's no use trying to signal that you're equally interested, for example, in the land economy course in all the different aspects. I think that's probably quite unrealistic. I'm a geographer, and I tell the geographers the same thing, that I'm not interested equally in physical and human geography. Why should you be? So be honest. If you're generally not that excited about law, don't write about it, because then if someone asks you, you'll just look silly because you won't be able to talk about it in any enthusiastic way, or you probably won't know anything about it. So just be honest. There's a reason you want to study land economy or economics. It's probably quite specific, or there's a few specific reasons, a few topics that really excite you. Write about those. It will make your personal statement far more engaging, and it's likely, therefore, that you'll be able to talk about it far more enthusiastically at interview.
I think I would also just add, for land economy, as Cambridge is the only place that actually does that course, for other universities you will be applying to different courses. So I would say don't worry too much in making the whole personal statement just about land economy, because you're applying for different things elsewhere. But that's the great thing about the SAQ. So for me personally, in that, I was able to talk a bit more about why land economy and the reading that I had done that I found really interesting. So I would just say don't worry too much if the whole personal statement isn't just directed to land ec.
So we've had a question asking how you knew which course you would be better suited for. So perhaps if you could tell us why you chose either economics or why you chose land economy.
Law wasn't for me. So I didn't want to have that side of it. So it was straight economics all the way for me.
Yeah, I've always been somewhere in between law and economics, and then because land economy gives you that opportunity, I thought that was something that I should take advantage of. And it also doesn't help that, it also helps I'm really bad at maths, so economics wasn't really on the cards necessarily as well. But yeah.
I think also if you're quite an indecisive person, land economy is a good course, just because they cover such a wide range of different areas, and then you can specialise as you do decide what you prefer the most, what you're most interested in. And I think that's what drew me more towards land economy, is just because I couldn't make up my mind what I actually wanted to study, and it included all the things I was interested in anyway, pretty much.
Ivan, I think we've got some more admissions questions for you. Starting off with, if a student applies at 4 A levels, will they be made an offer based on 4 A levels?
Not at St Catharine's, no. And in general, no. Our typical offer for economics is A star, A star, A, so 3 A levels. And therefore, an offer would be made on that basis. We would not specify 4 A levels. Someone also asked, so I'll do this one now. What happens if you do maths early, for example? You would still need to make an offer based on 3 A levels. So you would still have to take 3 A levels in 1 year. And the reason is that taking 3 A levels and in one sitting, as we call it, what that means is in 1 year, shows us that you're able to handle the workload of doing 3 A levels. And that is a pretty good indicator of whether you're going to be able to cope with the workload if you get to Cambridge. So that's why we would still make an offer. It's not that the A level wouldn't count. You'd therefore have the A star in maths in the bag, so to speak, but you'd still need to show us A star, A in some other A levels to show that you can deal with the workload.
Ivan, would you also quickly be able to comment on the number of applications and offers we make for students from independent schools and state schools?
Yeah, there's no discrimination. There is no quota, there's no target quota that we have to make. The university has signalled as part of its agreement with the Office for Students that there are various targets that we're moving to in terms of state school percentages, but there is no discrimination in that sense. So people come to us in the ratio that they apply to us in terms of state school, independent school. There's no positive or negative discrimination in that sense.
River, would you be able to comment on how high the maths content is in economics?
So in first, how high means the so when entry, the preliminary requirement is A-level math, and then afterwards in the first year we were going to teach math, like advanced math and statistics. And in the second year, students will learn specifically using statistics to solve questions in econometrics paper. In third year, there will be no compulsory math paper. So there's only 2 compulsory math paper in first year and the second year. Maybe Colin and Sahani can say something about how do you feel about math?
Yeah, so a lot of the topics that we cover in stats and especially stats like first year is quite related to if you did further math stats. So because I did that, it wasn't that a big of a jump. But then there's also, well, there's not much, but there's a little bit of maths in like micro and macro as well, like more like equations and like deriving different formulas. But yeah, it is quite heavy maths content like compared to like other subjects like land economy.
Okay, so we've been asked, particularly in regards to land economy, as it covers so many different topics, how did you prepare for your interviews? Danielle and Lawrence, would you be happy to answer that?
Thinking out loud, evaluating your ideas, thinking critically, I would say is a top tip. And also being flexible in your thinking. So if you're given a question, you may straight away think of an answer. And the more you think about it, the more you discuss it, you may think, oh wait, there's a better answer to this. And I think just being open-minded and realising that you're not always going to be right straight away is something to remember. And also, sometimes you can get asked questions where they don't expect you to actually know the answer. And it's kind of testing the way that you think and yeah, just developing on that. Because I think Lawrence and the other land economists in our year got asked a question about valuing land on Mars or something like that. And the idea is that there isn't one set answer, it's just kind of looking at the way that you think. So practicing doing that out loud, I think is a great tip. I don't know if you would add anything to that, Lawrence.
That's pretty much all I was going to say. Yeah, just because it is so broad, you do just want to think about what you spoke about in terms of your interests, what you've studied already, and also try and keep up with current events as well, because you really never know when they'll be useful. It can come in the weirdest ways, so just keep up to date on things, and that's really the best way to go.
A question for Callum and Sahani. What area of economics do you find most interesting?
I came into it thinking I quite liked maths, and at this point I prefer the politics and macro really are my favourites at the moment. So yeah, what you study can change that, but absolutely, you know, try and cultivate that area of interest so that it can come through in your application, and then obviously it'll blossom from during your time here.
Yeah, I was really interested in development economics when I applied, so I talked about that a lot in my past statement. But then you don't do a lot of development econ in the first year, you think you can do that later. So right now I'm more interested in like the macro side of econ.
So we've got another admissions-based question here. So how do we assess essay writing skills for our land economy students, particularly as we don't require submitted written work?
Short answer is we don't.
That was nice and quick. So another student wants to know what type of supercurriculars our students have done as part of their application. I'm not sure if you'd like to go first.
It's sort of like a progression, so you can pick up something maybe you learn about in your course and then attend a lecture on it, and then that interested you more, so you then go on and read a book about it and sort of keep up to date with the news, see if that sparks off any things that you're interested in, and really just go from there and kind of explore around your subject.
Yeah, I would just say the same really. Most of my interests started off from my geography and economics classes, and then my teachers recommended some books for me, and then I went on and read them, and then read more books by the same authors, and then it just kind of developed that way. But I think podcasts are great as well, especially one that I really recommend is Freakonomics, because it touches on like economic theory, but then it also looks at it from a more land economy perspective in some of the episodes as well. So it looks at policy and things like that. So it just depends on the way you learn as well. So some people prefer listening to things, some people prefer doing things. So I think it just depends on how you learn the best, and just finding ways to learn more about what you're actually interested in rather than just ticking books off a list.
So we've been asked if a student has an interest in economics but also politics, would there be an opportunity to take modules or papers in politics as part of the economics course?
Yeah, so first year, one of the compulsory paper is social and political economics. And in second year, there are also related papers in the area. And in third year, there is a specific paper, political economics. So if people are interested in political, for example, voting and how to use statistic model to analyze voting behavior, these are all covered in both the core curriculum as an application of microeconomics, also in a special option paper in the third year.
So we've been asked if the additional personal statement from the SAQ, will that be possibly discussed as part of an interview?
It might be. Remember, not everyone fills it in. It's not compulsory to fill in the additional questionnaire. Sorry, not the personal statement. You have to fill in the questionnaire, but you don't have to write an additional personal statement. So possibly if you write something, it's fair game, but also you might not be asked anything on your personal statement at all. It depends on the interviewers. But be ready to talk about it.
A question for the students. Why did you choose to apply to Catz?
Yeah, sorry, I visited like the different colleges. I chose Catz specifically because it's really central. So like where we go for like lectures, the Sidgwick site, that's like a 5-minute walk, so it's really close. And then like it's really close to like Sainsbury's and like the town centre, so it's just really accessible to like different places. And also it's just known to be like one of the more friendly colleges. And like, yeah, that's really true. Like everyone's so friendly in Catz, like even with, like between the different years, like everyone's just really willing to help you. So yeah, really friendly college.
Those are two of my first things I looked at as well. And then beyond that is the right size for what I thought I wanted. Not too big, not too small, and also our sports are really strong. So I thought I'd enjoy that.
So we've been asked if there's an opportunity to do any maths papers or modules as part of the economics course. River, would you be able to comment?
Yes, so again, in first year, math and statistics is one of the core module, the compulsory paper we should take. And in second year and third year, they both have specific math for economists and like modeling and further math in second year and third year. So if you like to focus more on modeling and all the other advanced math, there will be opportunities.
So we've been asked whether the interview questions are likely to be based on recent and current events. River, would you like to start with that?
We will not discuss specific, so again, the specific knowledge, for example, what's the current Bank of England base rate will not be part of the question because that will require you to answer a very specific number. But we could ask anything about, in light of the recent pandemic, for example, what's the policy related question. But again, none of the questions will have to base on a specific knowledge you already have. It will be a way to lead the question to see how you analyze the question. If we need you to know a specific number, we will provide it to you, just as if you can search it online.
Ivan, a question for you. Is Catz more or less competitive than the average college for economics?
The thing to say about economics is it's competitive across the university. It gets a large number of applicants at all colleges. It's a popular subject. It's one that, and partly because of that, it's why it's the only arts and humanities subject that is A star, A star, A, and also because of its particular maths requirements. So I think, I mean, in general, and I think River might want to add to this, but it's pretty competitive in all colleges. And that's why I think the applicant to place ratio of 4 or 5 to 1, maybe going up to 6 to 1, is pretty standard across most colleges.
Yeah, I think it's competitive paper, but I also don't want anyone to feel really bad if you think choose the specific college will make it less likely to get into the university as a whole. You shouldn't have this worry, because that's why earlier Ivan already explained the pooling system works. So we will make sure if the students already satisfy the level of getting university, getting Cambridge, they shouldn't be disadvantaged by choosing a specific college.
We've had a question about how much maths and how many mathematical elements there are in the land economy course. Danielle, would you be able to discuss that?
Yep, so we have one paper which is basically all maths and stats. I didn't do maths A level. I don't think Lawrence did maths A level either. So don't worry if you've not done maths at A level before, because during the first term, during the lectures, you're basically brought up to speed quite quickly. And if you are ever struggling with anything, you can go to your directors of study, or you can ask for an extra supervision. So only one of the papers, but in the land economy paper, there's a bit of maths in one of the parts, because we kind of do valuations. So it's just a case of, here's some formula, plug in the numbers and work out the answer. So in comparison to economics, we barely do any maths, but we do a little bit, yeah.
So a question for our current students. We've been asked how you prepared for the pre-interview assessment. If there's any tips you could give about your preparation.
So for land economy, we did the TSA, and for that, my advice would probably be just to do some practice papers. So you can find them all on the university website. They have the mark schemes as well. So if you just practice the kind of styles of questions, do it in time conditions, because you can be quite pressed for time. And I'd also just like to point out, it's not something that you can really revise for. So there's not kind of facts that you need to learn or certain information. It's more testing the way that you think, the way that you tackle these problems. Yes, I think that would be my advice, just practicing as much as you can.
We've had a question about whether any of the modules involve sustainability. River, would you be able to answer that?
Yes, so in third year paper, we have one paper called public policy, and public policy focus a lot on, for example, carbon tax, and all the public policy have implication on sustainability and environmental issue. And this also be part of the compulsory module in the third year microeconomics. So in general, the economics triples try to analyze, try to give the insights using the economic theories. So it's more like the tools you learn, and then you can apply those tools on a lot of questions or using lots of different types of data. And we also have students attempt the end of year dissertation about the carbon emission and related topics.
Another question for you, River. What careers do economics graduates often go on to do?
Yeah, a very popular choice for them is in financial and business sectors, including like investment banking, consulting, and asset management, etc. And on top of that, also many of students go to public sectors like the Bank of England or the Treasury in the UK. and also the international organizations like World Bank, IMF, or other NGOs. Also, a group of students continue studying master degree or PhD degrees to further pursue a degree or jobs in the academics.
On that topic, we've also had a question about the support we would provide to students studying economics who wanted to go on to study further degrees in that area. So what support we provide for students who want to go and do further postgraduate qualifications. Yeah, so I think successfully finish the BA degree here will be a very good first step to apply for any postgraduate degrees in other universities or actually in Cambridge. At the same time, all of our second year and third year papers are more like a research-based paper, so we don't have specific textbook to follow on. We use a very advanced research paper as the teaching materials. So that will be also helpful. And in general, we will provide the guidance as a direct study in the second year and third year to help you to prepare for the application process for the further study. So our final question is for our two economics students. So if you studied economics at A-level, how would you say the first year of the course differed from A-level study?
I think the main thing, certainly in macro and micro, is that the Cambridge course is very fundamental beginnings. You build it right up from the very start, and you get a very rich and detailed understanding of everything you're studying. So whereas the A-level course can kind of take you through lots of different things at a surface level, in the Cambridge course you will really go down into depth.
Yeah, there's a lot more like models like that you learn in like micro macro, so that differs a lot from A-levels. Like you more just in A-level, I think you just learn like the theory behind it, but you don't really know where it comes from. So yeah, and the first year you like learn the models and like what you've learned before, like where that all comes from.
We've probably got time for one more question. River, if a student likes maths but they much prefer the theoretical side of economics as opposed to the maths part of the course, would you say that the course at Cambridge would be a good fit for that student?
Yeah, I think the nice thing about Cambridge is to our knowledge, we are the only degree have both the math part and the history and political part. So no matter which part you are more interested in, as long as you finish the first year, second year on, you can divert to different paths. So I think it's definitely a good opportunity and choice.
That's great. Well, thank you so much to our panel. If any of the attendees feel they've got more questions they'd like to be answered, or if you think of anything after this webinar, if you just drop the admissions office an email, we'll send it on to the right people for you and we'll get an answer for you. So thank you very much to our panel for answering all these questions. So, bye.